This is the Goggler Podcast, Bahir and Uma with you, and we've seen it. We've gone to see Pendekar Awang, Darah Indera Gajah.
We actually went and bought tickets for this movie. We
That's
didn't
right.
go to the press invite.
We paid money for this. We paid money and we went to watch it. If you don't know, it is a kind of pseudo sequel to Mat Kilau. It's by the same production company, by the same producers. We have no idea who the director of this movie is because there's been some controversy regarding that. On the one hand, we heard that it was directed by the director of Walid and Garan, but then the names that appear in the movie seem to be different, and one of the names is the producer's son, Sharuddin Dali. So we have no idea who's responsible for this movie. But then again, given the film, it's no surprise that nobody wants to claim responsibility for this movie. I think we need to make clear that this is not historical in any way.
Mm.
The movie has a little title card at the beginning that claims a loose relationship with history. But for the most part, it feels like more of a fictional depiction of what happened following Mat Kilau and this supposed clash with the British. There are loads of things in this movie that feel like they've been lifted from other things that the filmmakers may have seen in the period in between Mat Kilau and making this. So someone clearly saw the trailer for The Woman King and decided that it might be a good idea to add a series of tudung-clad women with bows and arrows as a warrior class in old-time Malaya.
Mm-hmm.
There is entire sequences in this film that feel like a response to the criticisms to Mat Kilau regarding depictions of Indians and Chinese. However, they didn't really feel that strongly about it. So it's a very half-hearted attempt at addressing those issues.
I mean, no, because if they had to address those issues, they'd have to rewrite the script. It's better to just drop in 3 lines at the end.
I like how you say script lah. It feels like the script was maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs interspaced with the words Allahu Akbar. We lost count how many times they actually said Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
It's more times than Vin Diesel has said family in all of the Fast movies put together.
I would agree with that.
We're hitting the double digits.
I'm sure.
And it feels like that seems to be all they can do. They were given a directive with regards to crafting this propaganda movie. And I say propaganda movie because it feels written and produced with that agenda in mind. We know Mat Kilau was funded and produced by Studio Kembara. We know that the head of Studio Kembara was the former president of ISMA, and there's been a lot of discussions about the motivations of why they would tell that story in the way that they did. And of course, when Mat Kilau came out, it was just before the elections, and there was a lot of interesting conversations and discourse that movie was feeding and got fed into.
Yep.
I think Pendekar Awang comes at a different time, and I don't think it's going to have the same kind of impact as Mat Kilau, but the messaging is very similar. The messaging is that the Malay people should not be oppressed by outsiders and need to stand united because this is their land and their country, and no one should be able to take that away from them.
Yes.
And I say fiction because, like, they really go deep lah. The British have a secret underground cavern where they all wear masks and talk to each other, which make no sense, by the way, because they all know each other's names. So I don't know why there are 5 people in a room wearing masks while they talk to each other.
You know why?
I know why, because they're all Malay actors. Because they couldn't get white people. Yes.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
why.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's just the lamest execution of that idea.
I had to constantly remind myself, and it was only through constant reminding of myself that I didn't get angry at this film. And that constant reminder was, this isn't historically accurate. It doesn't pretend to be. There is a flash of a disclaimer at the beginning telling us that this isn't a historical epic. This is a retelling. It's a reimagining. So creative licenses were taken. And I get that. So I had to constantly remind myself that, right? If Pendekar Awang drove in with a Ford, I'd be like, sure, I'm okay with that. Sure, whatever, go for it, right? If he gets into a helicopter and flies off in the end, I'm like, sure, why not? Nothing in this film is anything remotely close to historically accurate. Fuck it.
I mean, the movie didn't make us angry also because we knew what to expect going into it. We were expecting garbage and we got garbage.
We got garbage, yeah.
And I say garbage because I don't mind propaganda movies. I quite
Yeah.
enjoy propaganda movies when they're done well. I think the
Yes.
problem with this goes back to the same problems we had with the Anwar movie. It felt like an amateur production, an amateur TV production
Yes,
from the
that's the one.
1980s.
Yeah.
It's like everything was too dark. It wasn't shot well. The person doing the voiceover narration in the beginning felt like an out of work drama actor who was given too much coffee in the morning. The CGI in the beginning looked awful. People would not even finish their sentences before they cut to a next scene. It was
Yeah.
so abrupt. Everything was shot so that you have absolutely no idea who is who, where they are, what time of day it is, how long this journey has taken from the beginning to the end. There is no sense of time or space. There are no establishing shots. It's all of the things you're not supposed to do when making a movie. It's just a badly made film.
In the hour and 50 runtime of this movie, there was only one shot of a setting sun.
Yes.
What the actual fuck?
No establishing shots at all.
These are people who are supposedly going from Pahang to fucking Terengganu on foot, and you show me one sunset. I'm trying to not get worked up by this because I knew coming into this was a terrible film. It didn't exceed my expectations in terms of terribleness. Neither did it surprise me that it wasn't as terrible as I expected.
Correct.
It perfectly hit that center target of this is going to be a terrible movie, so I'm just going to sit through it. And this was a terrible movie, so I just sat through it. For the life of me, I still don't know why it's called Pendekar Awang, because Awang does fuck all in this film.
That's the other problem with this, right? If you're calling the movie Pendekar Awang, and if the story, in a nutshell, now this story is completely unclear in the film, you have to work it out for yourself. But if the important story here is the journey of Tok Gajah, then why not do what every movie has done ever and have Awang by his side on this perilous journey as they fight off British soldiers and hindrances all
Yep.
along the way?
Yep.
We don't get any of that. Your main character has absolutely no motivation. There is no development. We have no idea why Awang is a hero. Like, this movie is so badly made and constructed that your hero shot before the opening credits is Awang throwing a clay teapot at a bad guy's head. Not even the main bad guy, his henchman's head.
Yeah.
And then you get the Pendekar Awang. No. That's not how superhero movies work. And you know what? This is essentially trying to be a superhero movie. You need him to do something super fucking cool before you slam the title credits on someone, right?
And it's not just him throwing a teapot at a bad guy. This is a gang of bad guys with our main villain's henchman and his crew riding into town and or kampung, dragging a local behind him on horseback, threatening the people of the village, saying, this is what happens when you come up against me and our people. What happens? Pendekar Awang, Pendekar, which means warrior, by the way, Warrior Awang buys a teapot. Nice of him to pay for said teapot. But he buys a teapot, throws it at this henchman, and walks away. And that's supposed to be cool?
There are very simple storytelling tropes, tried and tested tropes, which work in getting your audience excited about a situation. And this movie fails in every aspect of them. There are moments when Awang will look at the camera and the camera is right on him. He is center frame and he goes, prepare to face your doom. But he's talking to no one.
Yeah.
Awang is just staring into the jungle and going, death is coming for you. Everything in this movie feels like a poor ripoff of everything that we've seen before. This movie wasn't made by real filmmakers. It was made by people who have seen some films at some point and then decided maybe we can do the same thing in a Malay context. But
Yes.
they completely missed the point of all of the things they have seen. So when you watch this, it's not even a poor imitation, it just feels terrible.
Again, you're ascribing talent and ability to people who may not necessarily have talent and ability.
Fair
And they've
point.
proven to not have talent and ability. Just fucking copy movies lah. Go into Microsoft Word that you pirated, I suspect, and just copy paste. Just change name, title, sudah.
All I'm hoping is that given the amount of money that Mat Kilau made, I'm hoping that Wan Hanafisu, Amirul Effendi, Namron, and Fazura got a lot of money. I hope they paid them well because this is such garbage. Is it better than Mat Kilau? I don't know. Is it worse? I don't know. It's about the same. But it's very difficult to speak about this and critique it. It's just this pale imitation of what a movie should be.
It doesn't do all the basics of storytelling. I'm not even talking about a film, I'm talking about storytelling. This is the kind of story an old gentleman might tell some people, and he's just ranting off sequences. There's no setup, and then the next day this happens. Nah, it's just fucking moving along, and I don't get any of it.
What's very interesting to me, however, with both Mat Kilau and Pendekar Awang, and apparently a Mat Kilau prequel that's coming out at some point, what's interesting to me is how whoever's behind this, Studio Kembara, Isma, whoever has an agenda and are making these movies, it feels like an active effort to change the established narrative, in that the established narrative has always been, and this is what we learned in history growing up, and it was actually drummed into us because it was a question of real pride, that in Malaya, the Malay people did not have to fight for independence. They negotiated independence.
Yeah.
That Tunku and gang, their greatest accomplishment was they outsmarted the British and negotiated independence.
Yeah.
No blood was shed.
Yes.
And that was the pride, and that was something that we took to heart as Malaysians. These movies and the narrative that they are putting forward is trying to subvert that in some way, because maybe they feel that the race has become complacent. And so therefore, they're trying to incite some kind of warrior spirit. Like that, for me, feels like the political messaging behind this, which is subverting a long established historical narrative that we've told ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting, because the idea of Malay rebels, or the idea of the rebel in Malay culture, is something that has been frowned upon. Because if you look at the Tuah Jebat story, you've always celebrated Tuah, who was the
Yes.
loyal one, not the rebellious one, despite the fact that a deeper reading into the story will have you go, man, Jebat was right.
I disagree. I don't think it needs a deeper reading. We stopped at the point where Tuah and Jebat get into this fight, and Tuah wins and he goes back to the Sultan.
You're right.
We're ignoring the fact that the Sultan was wrong to ask Tuah to do what he did. Tuah knew the Sultan was wrong, and yet Tuah did it because the Sultan asked him, because he ta'at kepada Sultan. And I think that's the message that we got wrong. These ideals of, as you're arguing for a warrior class of Malays, is, I think, partially accurate. My issue is, why do we have to embellish? We have these heroes.
Correct.
Yes, Mat Kilau was a real person. Mat Kilau had real battles, but he lost. But there's nothing wrong with that. Lieutenant Adnan lost, but that was the point. He was willing to give up his life. Mat Kilau didn't die in battle, sure. But I think the problem in 2023 was that Mat Kilau lost because the Sultan sold him out. That's what we forgot. The reason that battle happened was because the Sultan was not being offered enough money by the British. So he decided to send his warriors up against the British. When the British subsequently came back with more money, the Sultan was like, cool, Mat Kilau, you are now an outlaw. I think that's an interesting story. Sure, it made the Sultan sound bad. That's historically accurate. It's not a reflection of our current Sultan just because they share the same title. The point is, that guy was wrong. Mat Kilau was right. He tried, he failed.
It's also in books, but people don't read books lah. And so I think those stories exist, and I think they're a lot more powerful than these
Yes.
embellishments. Yeah, and so for me, it's a wasted opportunity, because yet again, here are people with the money to be able to tell these stories, and yet they kind of flitter it away on these poor acts of propaganda.
Yeah.
And it's very clear that it's an act of propaganda. I mean, there's one line in the film when those secret British are meeting at a tempat rahsia wearing their masks,
This underground coven type thing.
and they're asked, who do we kill? Do we kill all the religious people? And it's a very clear message to Malaysia today. And they go, no, no, no. You only kill the truly pious, and you leave the ones who are troublemakers and who cause religious strife. And so, on the one hand, what they're saying is, listen, we want to leave those liberal Malays alive who are questioning religion and giving their liberal points of view on religion because they will cause strife among the people we don't like. And so, even that is planting this seed within the pious saying, oh, look, those Malays are the bad Malays, or those Muslims are the bad Muslims. The true Muslims are our Muslims, the conservative ones. So, all of that messaging is there. Now, I don't think it necessarily works, their kind of propaganda, but at the same time, I think if you do it enough times and if no one questions it, then it pushes a dangerous agenda and a dangerous message.
In Pendekar Awang, at one point, one Hanafi Su is telling this young boy about the parable of the Prophet Abraham, Prophet Ibrahim. There's a parable about how the Prophet Abraham was tied and cast into a fire, and a little sparrow, seeing this messenger of God in such distress, tries to help. The sparrow grabs little beaks of water to try and put out this fire. One Hanafi Su says, that's why I named your cousin Abraham or Ibrahim. And I'm like, why did that story of the sparrow make you think to name your nephew, your grandson, Ibrahim? It should be named after the sparrow because he's
Correct.
the hero of the story. It feels like all of Malay culture is that. It's always taking the wrong lesson from all these parables and stories, right? Like, for example, in the Tuah and Jebat story, instead of siding with Jebat, who sided against his best friend and the Sultan because of what is right, we side with Tuah, who did the wrong thing but listened to his Sultan. And I think it's that. We're always taking the wrong messaging. And I think this movie does the same thing. Yes, these people were real people. And yes, their stories need to be told, should be celebrated for fighting against oppressors. But it is not in the way where you draw the oppressors as villains. You draw the characters as heroes. It's a hard way of doing it. It's a hard way of telling a story by not blaming the oppressors. Like when you watch Braveheart, the message isn't that the British were evil. The message is that William Wallace was a hero. Robert the Bruce was a hero. And I think that's a thing to remember. You're not vilifying the British and every subsequent British people after that. You're heroing the guys who fought for what was right at the time.
I mean, we're not even talking about the Indian characters, the Sikh characters, and the Chinese characters because it's been said to death. And it's the same problem in this movie that was in Mat Kilau. It is historically inaccurate because the only depiction of those races are people who are against the Malays for some reason, which isn't necessarily explained, but repent towards the end of the movie in a really lame way.
Can I just ask, you're an Indian Malaysian gentleman. Were those, in air quotes, Bayi fellows actual Bayis or were they Indians?
Oh, a lot of them were just Indians, I think.
I don't think the Bayis turned up.
It could be.
I suspect after what happened in Mat Kilau, they all were like, no, no, no. We now realize what you're trying to do. And they pulled out or didn't show up, whatever. Because it didn't look like they were Bayis.
All of that remains problematic. And it's just stupid decisions by the filmmakers, which didn't have to be because it actually adds nothing to the narrative. And it ends up being problematic to our current discourse in Malaysia. And for me, that's an issue because I think these movies are utilized as tools, just as how Mat Kilau was utilized as a tool before, during, and after the elections of last year. And so that's why it's a problem. It's not just a movie in that sense, especially when political actors use it to their advantage to sow a message of lies. That's when it becomes problematic. The other issue is also why Finas is funding something like this. I'm not talking about the quality of the film. Finas can fund whatever crap they want, and they've continued to fund crap for many, many decades. I'm talking about if this is a production company that already has enough money because it made so much money with Mat Kilau, you don't need to give them money. They're fully
Yes.
capable of funding this movie by themselves. And I don't know what the Finas logo at the end of the film means, but I'm assuming it's a grant. They don't need a grant. I think that money should go to filmmakers who don't have access to money.
Yes.
That's who your priority should be, not a production company whose last movie made 97 million ringgit at the box office.
My follow-up to that is if this movie makes a profit, will Finas see any of that?
No, they don't.
No, but they should, right? Because they should become equity funders of a film. They shouldn't just be donors.
Exactly. They should start thinking of themselves as investors, as opposed to free money providers.
No, because they have to. I've applied for those grants at the time. This was many years ago, but it was never just a free way to get money, because you always had to justify what you were using the money for, and you had to prove that the money was going to proper places, and you had to prove that your movie can be a success, and that then there will be returns. If this movie makes back its money, then why did Finas give it money? Then it didn't need the help in the first place.
My prediction is that this movie is not going to make anywhere near as much as Mat Kilau. I think for multiple reasons. I think the political situation in the country is slightly different. That hotbed of discourse isn't there. Pre-elections always tend to have that level of heat. And so when Mat Kilau opened, it opened at a very interesting time. So I think that political factor isn't there. On a more practical level, I think the movie doesn't have any big names. And so I think that goes a long way to attracting mass crowds. I don't think the word of mouth is going to be as strong, because I really think Mat Kilau was lightning in a bottle. I think trying to recreate that, which is what they're trying to do, I know, and we've heard stories from our producer friends. After the success of Mat Kilau, every investor and his dog was emailing around going, hey, you got a historical story you want to tell? We need to cash in. We need to get on this train. Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. And it's the same mistake everyone does, not just in Malaysia, but in Hollywood as well.
I just think that what Mat Kilau had going for it was that as the word of mouth came out, and as the financial reports started pouring in, people got curious. We watched it because of the hype, to be fair, right? And I just think there will be no hype this time around. I think the Malays will come out for it. I don't think the Chinese and Indians will be curious enough to come out for it. If making 90 plus million in Malaysian cinema means you got more than just the Malays to come out to watch it.
I think it meant there were a lot of repeat viewings, and let's not discount the fact that political parties and such were buying out cinemas and giving out free tickets for people to go and watch it. So there was a lot of patronage in that sense as well.
I love your use of the word patronage. Patronage sounds noble.
Oh, yeah.
It will be interesting to see how well it does over the weekend, over the next couple of days. I'm just doing a quick, I don't know why GSC has put this movie in Aurum, the Gardens, but sure, go for it, my friend. I could be wrong, and I'm more than happy to be wrong, but I feel like the hype is not there anymore.
Under ordinary circumstances, we almost never tell you not to watch a movie, but I think you can skip this one, if only because not going to see this movie is taking a stand. And I think this is more than just a film. I think it is a propaganda tool, and I think the people behind it have an agenda. And if you do not want to support said agenda because you view Malaysia as something different and you don't share their worldview on what this country should be, then don't bother watching this film. You're not missing out on much. And besides, there's so much good stuff out there for you to watch anyway that you don't have to waste your time or your money. And so for me, a recommendation on whether or not to watch this actually plays into your political beliefs in a big way. Like, I don't think this movie was made for entertainment. That's why.
Yes, you are right. But I will also say, even if you don't care about the politics, even if you're not one of those people who is sensitive and or caring about any of the things that you mentioned, Uma, I still say don't bother, because it's a terrible film. Even if you want to watch it as a movie, this is not worth that ticket price.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's it. Pendekar Awang is now showing in Malaysian cinemas across the country. If you happen to have seen it already, we would love to know what you think. So reach out and let us know. All of our social media feeds are Goggler MY. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.